Racism, racism, racism. A chronic issue that we've had to deal with since childhood. You'll find that it is often the reason that Black fans keep to themselves. We are often criticized and scrutinized for the way that we enjoy fandom, how we interact in fandom, and oftentimes people treat us like we shouldn't enjoy fandom and media in general. That could not be further from the truth, so let's talk about it. I'm Mothra, and welcome back to Fun Fandom and Fashion Fridays. The idea that Black people do not enjoy nerdy things could not be further from the truth, and I believe that this comes from a systemic, racist stereotype that has been perpetuated against Black people for decades, and centuries, frankly. The Saturday Evening Post is a magazine based out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and it is a magazine that's still read to this day, but it has a harrowed history and a very racist past. Norman Rockwell, who worked for the Saturday Evening Post as the cover artist, was rarely allowed to depict Black individuals in anything other than positions of servitude towards white individuals. This was something that upset him greatly, and while he had a very long history and career at the Saturday Evening Post, he inevitably left because of their constraints, preventing him from depicting Black people in positive light. Due to his political differences and his desire to paint whatever he wants, including Black individuals, in positive light, he eventually left the Saturday Evening Post to go work for Look magazine. He went on to depict many different civil rights movement moments, including Ruby Bridges walking to school after the desegregation of schools. Disney also has a racist past, contributing to harmful stereotypes towards Black people and perpetuating the trope called the magical Negro. I will be making a video about magical Negroes at one point, but just so you know, here, a magical Negro is typically a Black person of any gender who comes in and assists the white protagonist, oftentimes imbuing wisdom upon them that will solve all of their problems. This relegates Black people to being character development for white people in the long run. One of Disney's movies that spearheaded this stereotype of the magical Negro is Song of the South, and includes a little white boy who's struggling with moving in with his grandmother in a house that's obviously used to be a plantation. They have Black servants on the property, and he feels very, very lonely, and where he turns to is an older Black man who seems to be able to solve all of his problems through the art of storytelling. Disney also depicted Black people negatively in the movie Dumbo, where they had that opening number where the workers are pitching the circus tent so that the performers can put on a show the next day. And in the song, they sing about being lazy. I'll read off some of the lyrics. All right, so this is the first few lines of the song. It's called Song of the Roustabouts, and the lyrics go as such. We work all day, we work all night, we never learn to read or write. We're happy-hearted roustabouts. And then there is another portion that says, we don't know when we get our pay. When we do, we throw our pay away. So that implies that Black people cannot financially manage their own money. And so basically, as soon as they get it, they throw it away. All right, and then there's also this portion which I wanted to touch on. Pullin', poundin', tryin', groundin', big top roundin' into shape, keep on working, stop that shrieking, grab that rope, you hairy ape. So that is incredibly racist. One of the ways that Black people have been dehumanized is being compared to apes and monkeys. And so that's exactly what that is doing in this portion of the song. I will say that it is very ironic for the movie Dumbo to have this message of do not treat people poorly because they are different than you, only to open the movie with one of the most racist songs that Disney has ever put out there. Another thing that Disney did in Dumbo is they had the Jim Crows, which the Jim Crow laws were specifically laws that oppressed Black people these were laws that allowed for segregation and the poor treatment of Black individuals. You know, if you ever seen those signs or pictures that have like whites only, Black only, water fountains, bathrooms, schools, these were the laws that allowed for that to happen. So having these characters, the Jim Crows, being depicted in the movie Dumbo is both a slap in the face to Black people on the level of their name, but also for the fact that they have very stereotypical black personalities. They're very stereotypical, and you know, the Crows are just very loud. They're rude. They make fun of Dumbo. They're just there to basically cause issues and problems. And sadly, as beloved as Tom and Jerry is, it is not going to escape my scrutiny. It is very funny, and I love it. I love the show. I grew up watching it. But Tom's owner is a Black woman by the name of Mammy Two Shoes, and she is consistently depicted abusing Tom and treating him very poorly. And not only that, this is another Black character that is portrayed in servitude. Specifically, she's a maid. And so whenever she comes home after a long day of work, oftentimes she gets very frustrated with Tom and attacks him and chases him out of the house with her broom if he has not taken care of Jerry. I will give some lenience in terms of this is partially probably slapstick comedy, which was popular at the time. However, comparing the slapstick comedy with this very negative stereotype of a Black woman, combining those together is not very good, and paints a picture that Black women are just angry and abusive and harsh and mean, especially after a long day's work. Which, again, she's being depicted as a woman who's working, but Black people are also lazy, I guess. So now that we've talked a little bit about the historical context of what is painting the picture of what a Black person to be, let's go ahead and talk about the fact that Black people have always been engaging in fandom for as long as it's been around. Fandom really, the way that it looks now, really got its starts in about the early to mid 1900s, specifically around the release of Star Trek, the original series. And people have enjoyed Star Trek, the original series for such a long time, who come from a variety of diverse backgrounds, including my own mother. She grew up watching the reruns of Star Trek, the original series, and not only that, she's engaged with all the other Star Trek TV shows.
So you know I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and we're talking Star Trek, the original series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise, all the movies, with the original cast going out there, the newer movies. Love it, love it, love it. It is just an incredibly expansive, immersive world, and they told some of the most incredible, fanciful stories. And it's all on a soundstage. But they make you feel like you're really going somewhere else.
My mom has also, played a lot of video games. She is actually the one who introduced me to the Legend of Zelda series, which back here you can see my books. I have most of the games, and it's something that I've really enjoyed and loved. So we have been engaging in these pieces of media for a very long time.
What about, video games?
So, I was there from the very beginning when we had Pong. Pong was...
To be fair, Pong is actually really fun.
Pong is really fun. And if you don't know what's coming and you don't know anything else, you will sit there for hours hitting that ball back and forth. It's the simplest video game ever. It was the first one. I believe it was on Atari.
Yeah, it was on the Atari.
But when I was a kid, so I kind of watched it evolve rapidly into these are the games that you have at home, but then there's also arcades that you can go to.
Yeah, arcade
right?
with their cabinets.
Right.
That were I'll put a picture on the screen there. They were very large computer terminals basically, and they would be plugged into a wall. And in these arcades, they'd have them line up. You could probably still go to arcades now and play on them. There probably would be more vintage focused
Yes,
video
things
games
like Centipede and Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. All that. And you had to beat the high score, right?
Yeah.
And all the quarters until you beat the high score.
But eventually we went into, as a society, video games that were home consoles. People didn't necessarily want to have to leave their house just to play a game. Why don't you tell the viewers what game you purchased to go with your purchase of the Nintendo 64?
Well, the very first game I bought was The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. That is what the guy. So I go to buy the Nintendo 64, and I ask the guy behind the counter, "What game do you recommend that I get?" And he's like, "Well, our most popular game right now is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time." So I bought it, and now I bring it home, and
Michael wasn't really super interested in it at first. Right.
No, he was interested. He wasn't interested in playing it. Y'all made me play. Again, you're two, but you sat down every day and watched me play it. And Michael the two of you guys sat there every day and watched me play this game.
Back in the day, my mom also engaged in LARPing when she was in college.
So I went to a college. I went to Cornell College, and it was the curriculum was different. You would go to class for 3.5 weeks, and on that last day you would take your final, just one class at a time. You take your final, and then you have 4 days off to do whatever you want, party, do all the college life things and
clubs and stuff.
Yeah. But in this instance, it was really fun because like the last year I was there was when I found a group of guys that like to play live action role playing of Dungeons and Dragons, and we put together costumes and we would actually play out in the forest that was just beyond the college, and we had roles to play, and we made our own weapons and decided who we were, and it was a lot of fun because you're just doing that in the woods at night. You could totally nerd out. It was like we were there, because sometimes when you go in the woods, it does look like it's another world. You're surrounded by trees. There were probably snakes and bears and all kinds of crap in there. We didn't care.
It just goes to show that Black people engaging in fandom and nerdy culture is not new. My mother is 56 years old, and she has kind of been a nerd her entire life. Not only has she engaged in video games and LARPing and TV shows, she loves opera and classical music and theater and just, anything nerdy you could wrap your head around. She really, really enjoys. There's also the fact that Black people have been creatives for a very, very long time. Black creation has a rich and varied history, but one of the things that I really want to touch on is the fact that The Three Musketeers was written by a biracial Black man back in 1844 named Alexandre Dumas, which will lead me into my next point. Black people often create and contribute to nerdy media. For example, actress Nichelle Nichols, a NASA Exceptional Public Achievement Medal recipient, played Lieutenant Uhura in the Star Trek original series, and her role was so incredibly impactful that when she thought she was going to quit, Martin Luther King Jr. himself reached out to her via phone and said, "Please do not quit. The work you are doing is so important. We really need people to see you on TV." And that representation really matters. It showed a Black woman being lovely and feminine and not violent and intelligent and having a career. And that kind of stuff is really, really important. And not only was it so impactful that Martin Luther King Jr. reached out to her, it later impacted Whoopi Goldberg's career trajectory, which, if you do not know, Whoopi Goldberg is an EGOT recipient. That means Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. That means she has won all of those awards. And she too was in a Star Trek series. She was in Star Trek Next Generation, playing Guinan, who was an incredibly impactful character on the story, which I also want to talk about her and her role as Guinan in my video about magical Negroes, and how she is not a magical Negro, even though she is a character that is really impactful on the white character Jean-Luc Picard, and kind of like how she is impactful in this character's life and arc, but she's her own person. Her role is not to just help this white man, in this case, progress and like become better and self-actualize. And so I will eventually talk more about that in the Magical Negro video. But for now, I just want you to know that like Whoopi Goldberg, it contributed a lot to nerdy culture as well as the role of Guinan. Again, portraying a Black woman who was kind and intelligent and had a career and a lot going for her. Another actor that I want to touch on is Grammy Award-winning actor and NAACP winner LeVar Burton. He was also in Star Trek Next Generation, where he played Geordi LaForge, a chief engineer on the Starship Enterprise. Geordi LaForge was not only a Black man, but he was a disabled man. Geordi LaForge is blind, and that impacts the way he sees the world. He actually has this visor that goes across his eyes that help him see and navigate, but without it, he can't see anything. And a few times throughout the show, we get to see what the world looks like for him. We also get to see how he interacts with his interpersonal relationships with a character named Data, who is his best friend and is an android. And I think that Star Trek Next Generation is such a beautiful show in the sense that it shows all of these diverse characters having such beautiful interpersonal relationships in spite of the fact that they are different. LeVar Burton is also known for his work on a show called Reading Rainbow, a show that would introduce a variety of different books to students and young children. These books could then be checked out at their local or school libraries. He would talk about these varieties of different books, from genres to the plots to kind of just a little bit about the characters, and it really got kids engaged and wanting to learn how to read, and not only learn how to read, but engage thoughtfully with stories. This show was played all across the United States, and it was also played in schools. I remember when I was a kid, they would roll in a giant CRT. It was on a cart. It was a TV cart. The thing was ginormous. Honestly, could probably kill any one of us that was in class if it fell over. And they would wheel it in, and they would pop in a VHS tape, and we would watch Reading Rainbow. And as a kid, I didn't really get this part that you were supposed to go ask about the books in the library. I was just like, great, we're learning about books. What do I do with this information now? No one told me. I do have autism, but no one told me I was supposed to go and ask the librarian about checking them out. Because I'd see books that I was really interested in, but I'd never know what I was supposed to do with the information afterwards. And that was just information that was not conveyed to me properly. But he did get me really, really interested in the books and the stories. And I think that's partially because he's just a very engaging man. He's very entertaining. He's very sweet. And that really comes through on camera. So shifting a little bit away from actors, let's talk about the NAACP Image Award winner, Aaron McGruder, who is the creator of the Boondocks. I love the Boondocks. It's absolutely hilarious. It's so funny. It is a wonderful criticism of the Black community from someone who's within the Black community. And it started out as a comic strip in the Diamondback newspaper, but eventually it got animated. And when it did get animated, it was very obvious, even while it was still in comic strip form, but especially when it became an animated series, that the art style of the show is very inspired by anime itself. And there's even points in the show where the animation is copied from Naruto. And I'll put up the comparison on screen, but this is like kind of very blatantly obvious when Huey and Riley are fighting Stinkmeaner and his goons, and it's so funny, but it's very obviously a copy of the animation that is in the Naruto TV show. I really do recommend the Boondocks. Like I said, it's a wonderful criticism of the Black community and introspection, but it's so incredibly funny. I think that anybody can watch it and enjoy it. Another creator that is really, really, really important, I would say, especially to modern animation, is Ian Jones-Quartey. He is the co-creator of Steven Universe, and he was an animation director for the Venture Bros. He is married to Rebecca Sugar, who is his co-creator with Steven Universe, and together they created the character Garnet. Garnet is a spoiler alert for a show that's been out for ages, is a fusion between Ruby and Sapphire. And Ruby and Sapphire has been stated by Rebecca Sugar to be a reflection of her and Ian's relationship together. Ian is Ruby and Rebecca is Sapphire. And these two characters come together to make up Garnet, who is inspired by a black woman. Her name is Estelle. She is a Grammy Award-winning musician. She's from England, and she's also the voice actor for Garnet. Rebecca Sugar said that many of her design choices were made while she was listening to music that Estelle made, and the writing overall was heavily influenced by Ian Jones-Quartey. This just shows that Black people can make things that are very, very influential, and, you know, Steven Universe has had such a lasting impact on fans and on fandom culture in general. So while Rebecca was primarily responsible for the character design of Garnet, Ian was the one mostly in charge of Garnet's actual overall character development and personality. And this had a big impact on how the show went itself. The last mainstream media individual that I really want to touch on is Grammy Award winner Megan Thee Stallion. She is a rapper who is very openly nerdy. She loves to cosplay. She raps about her love for anime, referencing it in songs like Otaku Hot Girl, where she talks about Jujutsu Kaisen and Naruto. I'll put some of the lyrics up on screen. She also references in the song Mamushi her love for anime and Japanese culture, which she did work on in collaboration with Yuki Chiba, a Japanese musician. People really criticized her for her pronunciation of Japanese words in Mamushi, which was really unfounded and unfair because her pronunciation was actually quite fine. She just has an accent, and who doesn't have an accent when they're speaking a foreign language? That would honestly be impressive to just not have one at all, but she already has a very strong accent in English. So the fact of the matter is her having an accent in Japanese isn't really all that surprising. And the fact that people were criticizing her for that was ultimately a little bit ridiculous, especially because she was saying the words correctly. Like I mentioned, she's very openly nerdy. She recently went to a pop-up store with some friends. It's called Kodansha House. I believe it is in California. I don't know how much longer it's going to be around. I've seen a lot of people go to it, but it's a manga pop-up house, and she went with her friends, and they went around and they looked at posters and of course the manga, and it looked like they really had fun. She regularly cosplays. She actually has cosplayed a variety of characters like Death the Kid, Mirko. Oh, she's cosplayed Miku, like Hatsune Miku, the Vocaloid, and many more. And specifically, Mirko is actually inspired and based off of her. And oftentimes, the writing assistant to Ken Takagi, the author of My Hero Academia, where Mirko is from, the assistant actually draws Mirko in outfits that Megan has worn before. They seem to really like drawing Mirko and seem to really enjoy Megan a lot. And she also loves My Hero Academia. She also cosplayed Todoroki. So it's almost like it comes full circle all the time. It's very cute. But yeah, like these are just like all people who are openly nerdy or have contributed to nerd culture. And I just wanted to kind of create a timeline because obviously Nichelle Nichols got her start on the original series for Star Trek, and we're all the way up to, at this point, Ian Jones-Quartey and Megan Thee Stallion, who are making waves as Black people in nerdy spaces and in fandom, whether it is creating, acting, or writing music, we do contribute to fandom spaces on a very consistent basis. I also want to point out that many mangaka love to make Black characters, and I really like that, and it just makes me, and I'm sure a lot of other Black people, feel somewhat welcome in anime spaces. Here is just a short list of Black anime characters. Killer Bee, as well as other Cloud Village characters from Naruto Shippuden, Mohammed Avdol from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, as I mentioned before, Mirko from My Hero Academia, Rocklock from My Hero Academia, the Afro Samurai from Afro Samurai, Ogun Montgomery from Fire Force, Canary from Hunter x Hunter, and an honorable mention just because Black people love this character so much, Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z. And there are many other Black characters in anime and in manga. It's just the list has gotten so long at this point, we'd probably be here for quite some time if I read all of them off. But it makes me very happy because I didn't see a lot of Black characters in anime itself when I was growing up. So to see these characters be included, and not only be included, but be important to plot lines is awesome. It's amazing to me. Sadly, despite the fact that we've carved out a beautiful space for ourselves in nerd spaces, we still experience a lot of racism even to this day.
And I guess this leads into my next point. Would you say, I feel like as the years have gone on, mangakas and just people who create anime in general have been actually really, really welcoming to Black fans.
Oh yeah, I attribute that to, especially to Japan society, although given the recent election, God knows what's going to happen now, but over the last few years they've been a lot more welcoming to foreigners, and kind of I feel with that shift, probably looking at getting more diversity in their diet, so to speak. So you got more people visiting there, you got people from different countries, different races, and that you can interact with people more, and especially now online, and with I think they're also starting to realize just how big the anime and manga market is in America specifically. I personally think that they never really took that side seriously, but it's been growing over and over. And I think a lot of times they saw what happened with K-pop in America and were like, damn, we should have jumped on that when we had the chance. So now they're like, well, we can still reach an audience over there with anime and manga, because that's a really big deal for, a big export for us with them in terms of entertainment. So yeah, you see more of that. One thing that I'm excited to see is, speaking of there's going to be an adaptation of a gacha game that I play called Twisted Wonderland from Disney, and that has character designs done by Yana Toboso, who's the mangaka for Kurosetsuji. And she's been good with characters of color before, but she had to base 3 characters off of The Lion King-ish. I say ish because there's only 2 based off of Lion King characters and 1 who's not, but they're all 2 out of that 3 are have darker skin tones, and then 1 she had to base off of Dr. Felicier, I can't remember how to pronounce that man's name, from Princess and the Frog. And that was that design turned out good too, but they didn't whitewash them or anything like that. And they even got from what I can see, they got Black voice actors to play these characters for the anime adaptation for the English dub. So they're taking, there's steps being taken in understanding that audience and making sure that they are at least not as bad as they used to be with Black people.
it's very disappointing to a certain extent. It gets exhausting, and we're treated as if we are not supposed to be here. And I think that this is partially because overall fandom spaces seems to be very white dominated spaces, as well as more specifically white male dominated spaces, because even though I'm specifically going over the racism towards the Black community today, the racism obviously goes through to other POC, as well as the fact that there's an incredible level of sexism in fandom spaces to the point of ridiculousness at some times. And I think this is partially, like, my theory for this is that because these are white male dominated spaces, it's almost jarring when people see someone who's not a white man participating in it, because it's socially acceptable for white men to be participating in these things, as well as just having hobbies in general. And what I mean by that is, if we just kind of look at society as a whole, some of the things that we see are the fact that, like, you know, it comes from the idea that men are allowed to have hobbies, and oftentimes we see this in ways of men having man caves or having parties dedicated to, you know, like the Super Bowl or other sports events, and they're allowed to get excited and hyped about that. But if you are a woman or a person of color, you're really relegated to having two roles. If you're a woman, you get to be a child rearer. And if you're a person of color, you get to be in a position of servitude. As I mentioned before when I was talking about, like, our depictions in media as Black people. And if you are going outside of the bounds of these stereotypes, it's seen as childish or a waste of time. You'll oftentimes see people of color and women online being criticized and hounded for engaging in hobbies. Oftentimes people will even make fun of women who are older because they're still engaging in hobbies, rather than, you know, just, I don't know, being moms or, like, you know, being homemakers. And I think this also, when it comes back to Black people, is like, we are seen as lazy, but we're also expected to do all the work. So if we're having leisure time for ourselves, we're being lazy because we're not doing all the work. This can be especially exhausting when you want to engage in fandom spaces, but you are unwanted. So oftentimes Black people carve out spaces for themselves. Over the years, due to racism and isolation, we've carved out our own spaces so that we don't necessarily have to deal with being called slurs and insulted and demeaned for our skin color, our facial features, our hair texture. And we don't engage with primarily white spaces anymore because it's frankly exhausting to continue to try to justify why we should be here. So instead of justifying why we should be here, we've just made our own space. Part of the ways that we've done so is through blocking people, as well as reporting them when they're doing racism and making inflammatory statements. We block people who harass Black voice actors and Black cosplayers, even if it's not directed at us. We just don't want anything to do with it. And honestly, frankly, I encourage other people to do that as well. And not only that, since we have this no tolerance for racism, there are other marginalized groups that oftentimes feel comfortable in Black fandom spaces. And I actually ran a small survey about this to get feedback from both Black people, but also non-Black people, and how they engage in fandom spaces, and specifically Black fandom spaces. And I would like to go over some of the results with you guys, because they're very interesting.
All right, so in my survey, I asked quite a few questions, but I do want to just go over like some of them. I will have the survey linked in the description if you want to look over it further. But there's just a lot of things that some responses are more relevant than others, but I think the survey overall gives us a very interesting perspective. Now, this is a small sample size, as you can see on the screen, only 31 responses. were given. I did get responses from a variety of places, from my Discord community, from other Discord communities that I'm in, from TikTok, Blue Sky, and I believe that was it. I also did share it to my actual YouTube page, but those are the places that I got responses from. I am a smaller content creator, so I was actually very happy to see that 31 people responded in general. So let's get started. The first question was, are you Black? 54% of them said yes, 45% said no. A disclaimer, just because someone said that they were not Black does not mean that they are necessarily white. I do know from some of the responses that some people who responded are white, but I also know that some people who responded are not white. I asked if you were Black, if you have experienced racism in fandom, and most Black people that responded said no, but a fair chunk said yes. This is for the people who are not Black, so just take this pie chart into account. 13 people said no, 6 said yes. But what's interesting is in the follow-up question, I said, do you mind telling me about your experience? And a few people said that they do not put themselves out there as Black for like online safety purposes. So it seems that some of the people who said that they did not experience racism in fandom did not disclose their race in these fandom spaces. I did have quite a few people respond with the fact that they have been called the N-word and told to go back to where they came from. Like in this response, they've been called racial slurs, and they mentioned seeing and experiencing, like by proxy, like racism towards other Black people, which is another question that I brought up. Have you witnessed racism against other Black people? There was an overwhelming yes. 30 people said yes, 1 person said no. There's like this response is like, so and so character is Black, you can't cosplay them this way. A lot of people did bring up cosplay and how, being black seems to be a big issue for a lot of people who cosplay. It being an issue for them because they are experiencing the racism. Racist jokes under cosplay videos. Again, a lot of people got called the N-word. Whitewashing characters in fan art seems to be a big issue that people have seen. Racial slurs, again, mentioned. A lot of people just being incredibly rude to cosplayers. I asked if Black, do you feel more comfortable around other Black fans? Most people who were Black said yes. 1 person said no. And the general consensus was overall just no. This first response is a very good, I think, summary of the responses that I got. Like I said, I will link the survey. No fear of racial judgment, shared experiences and understanding. That is a big factor in a lot of people's desire to interact with other Black fans. Black, what are some things non-Black people can do to make you feel more welcome in non-Black fandom spaces? A lot of people said to call out racism. Others were saying be aware of how you draw Black characters in media. Literally just not be racist. A lot of people were just saying don't be racist and call out racism. Then there's the question, if non-Black, do you feel welcome in mainstream fandom? Of the people who were non-Black, 9 said yes, 6 said no. If non-Black, do you feel welcome in Black fandom spaces? 14 said yes, 1 said no. I asked them to elaborate on their answer. Some people said I'm Black. That question was not required, but they were just like, I'm Black. So, I don't ever feel like I'm excluded from Black fandom spaces on the basis of me being white. I feel more welcome in fandom spaces that minority groups are a part of in general, which can include Black spaces. I'm not Black, but I am Latina and queer, and I find that there's less bigotry or discrimination when surrounded by other people who know what it's like to face that sort of things. Minority groups tend to be a bit more accepting towards others who are different, whereas if you're in a fandom that is mostly white cishet men, I feel like you usually end up encountering more hatred or generally feeling like you don't belong there. And that seems to be a general consensus from a lot of people. I do have some longer responses that are on the screen if you are interested in reading those, but the consensus is that a lot of people of color and just a lot of people who are part of marginalized groups in general feel more comfortable in other groups that also have minorities in them. Like I said earlier in the video, I can only speak from my experience as a Black person, so that's what this video's perspective is from. But I will say that I also feel very welcome in other minority-led spaces. This was more for me. I said, Leslie, is there anything you want to share that I may not have asked? And it was just like, as someone said, I recognize my experience as a white person and that my experience as sexually fluent is not universal. Thank you for providing this survey. A lot of people said no. I got a little heart. But like I said, this was mostly for me. other than that, that's the conclusion of the survey. Again, if you want to look at more of the details and responses, I will link it somehow in the description, whether it is I have to take like individual screenshots and upload it somewhere. I will get that done for you. I hope you found the results for this survey as interesting as I did. As Black individuals, to kind of like have Black fandom spaces where we don't have to necessarily worry about just overall blatant racism. What would you say to people who are like non-Black, and I guess specifically to white people who want to engage with Black fans? What would you want to see from them that like shows that they are like a safe person to interact with?
Pretty much just interact with these spaces with respect. You know, it's like when you go in someone's home, you don't just get up on your couch and start kicking up your feet and you know, like, you know, muddying up their couch like you Rick James. Like, you just don't do that. Like, you know, don't do that. And if you see somebody who is being disrespectful or blatantly racist or something like that, say something, because the amount of times that we've, in general, like beyond fandom spaces, where we create our own space for us to feel safe and to feel welcome, and then someone goes like, you know, someone white or just non-Black goes like, hey, no, don't do that, and then they come in there and just start, you know, causing issues. Just be like, what are you doing? Shut up, get out of here, you know, like back us up, because we're tired of always having to do that. I would also say so don't just do it like in February or in August if you celebrate the Bama beatdown on the boat, like depending on, or Juneteenth. Don't just reblog or share or, like, Black creators during that time. Just do it all the time. Check tags for stuff. Like, I mentioned before, like on my Tumblr, that while I know that there's a big contention with like X reader fix, but I'm like, if you make X Black reader fix, I'm here behind you 100%. Like, because I know that niche needs to be filled, and that there are so many times I know people were reading about like OCs that someone made, and you get to a part where it's like, my porcelain skin turned red, and you're like, damn it.
Another thing that we do to curate Black fandom spaces is uplifting Black creators. I mentioned some mainstream Black creators, but I do want to go over some more up-and-coming or smaller Black creators. And a small music artist that I really want to highlight, her name is Paida. She is a Black J-pop idol, and her music is so fun and cute. So for those who don't know, J-pop idols typically have concepts that they go with, and for her concept, she is a alien that has come to Earth to take over the planet through music. And her music is so fun. She's based out of Texas. She is what's known as a Kaigai idol, and she actually coined that term herself. It's just a term used to refer to J-pop idols that do J-pop outside of mainland Japan. A lot of people think that you can't be a J-pop idol if you're not Japanese, but that's actually not true. J-pop is a genre, and really anybody can be a J-pop idol. There's lots of different J-pop idols. It's just, Paida's my favorite, especially right now. Her music is so fun, and I really do recommend you check her out.
Hey, you! Stop running! Don't you dare hurt Messiah's! Hey! Eat a shroomy. Oh, new friend. Want a shroomy?
A Black voice actor that I really respect, who works very hard, is AJ Beckles. He's the voice actor for Okarun in Dandadan, and Poison Mushroom Cookie in Cookie Run Kingdom. And he has an incredible range. He's very good at voice acting, so I do recommend supporting him. But these are like the kinds of people that we really should be supporting and uplifting, especially if you want to be not only not racist, but just actively anti-racist. So things that you can do is just supporting Black creators. That is one of the biggest things that you can do. Supporting like small Black businesses. You know, it's not enough to just be like, I'm not racist. You need to do things that are actively like against racism. And part of that is calling out racism when you see it, as well as supporting Black people in their creative endeavors. Sadly, one of the things that I do want to touch on just slightly is, yes, we receive a lot of racism and just like hate from outside sources, but sometimes we get hate from within our own community. Anime and just nerdy stuff and like fandom in general is still very, very new to the Black community as a socially and overwhelmingly accepted thing. And oftentimes we are made fun of ourselves for enjoying these kinds of medias.
Well, or you're picking the wrong one. Like, you're supposed to have specific hobbies that fit you. And it's like, well, that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to enjoy this other thing and not whatever it is you think I should be enjoying. And because specifically when I was in high school, middle school, high school, going through all this, it wasn't cool. You know, we were them weird kids, you know, them weird, quiet kids that like the weird stuff. And it was, I never faced the bullying directly, but you know, you get lumped into that group of the weird kids who like the weird stuff. So, but when it comes to like, in my more immediate circle, like with family, I would get a lot of just like, why do you like that weird stuff? Are you watching them Chinese cartoons again? You know, stuff like that. Because I don't know. It just seemed like to like that stuff in the Black community just seemed weird, and I never know why. I still don't know why, because it's not like, you know, it wouldn't be uncommon like if you pulled up, I guess, for somebody's grandparents now, it'd probably be He-Man or something like that. You know, you pull up He-Man to your uncle and he goes like, oh yeah, I remember that. You know, it's kind of the same thing, you know. Or if you were into, you know, there's somebody who probably was collecting comic books back then and you're doing it now, and they think it's weird. Or they collected, I don't know, Beanie Babies back when it was a fad and you're collecting figurines now. Like, it's weird whatever the criteria is to label you as a weird motherfucker, you know. Like, it changes, it seems, all the time, because now anime seems to be okay, but maybe certain anime only. Like, it seems like shonen is pretty much the only one that you have to like. And the minute that you deviate from that, they'll be like, oh, you like that weird stuff, but blah blah blah. So you even then you're still not abiding by whatever criteria they have. Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing too with the turn here, and I was going to mention this earlier, but you bring that up, kind of like when we were talking about how there's this need to just kind of fit in and everything. I was going to say, like, we do have a double-edged sword of kind of like the stereotype of Black people being like cool, you know, like, because you know, or, you know, within the community, kind of like, oh yeah, we're cool, we know what's up, trends come from us, you know, like we set the standards, and that can backfire if you go outside of what the community deems as cool, you know. But when you realize, like, well, if what I'm doing, you know, like, if we are the trendsetters, then let's make this a trend because it's neat, it's fun. like I'm over here having a good time. I want y'all to have a good time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the medium. It's kind of like with how I try to get people to look at like comics, because I'm also really big into that. And it's like, it's the medium. Like, there's so many stories that you can tell through this that you probably couldn't make work in live action. It probably would only be good like drawn, but you're missing out on a lot of stuff because you just have this preconceived notion of being for kids or for, like, you know, just immature people or whatever. But I'm like, there's a lot of good stuff in here. It's just imagine, like, if you can't imagine the images in your head when you're reading a novel, then comics put that in for you because they already drew the picture. So it's like you're missing missing out on good stuff because of that, because of whatever like preconceived notion for this media you have. Which I don't know. I'm trying, but it's it's just so I get some people sometimes, and then other people I'm like, well, I'll just leave you alone.
I myself have been on the receiving end of that, where I had a family member that bullied me pretty badly when I was growing up for enjoying anime and video games and things like that. But what's wonderful about these Black fandom spaces existing is that we can find solidarity within each other and make new connections with people who really not only understand what it's like to be Black, but what it is to be a nerd. So, like I was mentioned before, Black fandom spaces are Black fandom spaces, but they are not anti-other people spaces. Black fandom spaces are actually one of the most welcoming and loving spaces that I have ever been a part of. It doesn't matter your race, religion, your color, your creed, your sexuality. Black fandom spaces tend to be overwhelmingly welcoming, and I think that that's absolutely wonderful. I really love the fact that they are so overwhelmingly wonderful and welcoming. And the only thing that is, I think people are a little hesitant to approach because they think that we have curated these spaces just as Black only spaces, where we curated these spaces where Black people can express themselves freely. And so again, being anti-racist and just kind of like making sure that you're not bringing that with you and not tolerating that. So oftentimes if people are removed from these spaces, it's not because of their own race themselves, it's because they're being actively hostile towards Black people. So genuinely, the consensus is if you are not being racist towards Black people, they're gonna want to hang out with you. They're gonna totally want to talk to you about a variety of different fandom topics. And I think that that's really, really fun. We also want to have fun and enjoy ourselves, which is why we've created these spaces. We don't want to bring in that drama that we're purposely trying to keep out. I think Black people and just people in general who you know, if you've been in a marginalized position, deserve to have spaces for themselves to enjoy themselves and without judgment or scrutiny. And that's part of the reason I've made this video, is I really, really wanted to talk about this in terms of like, hey, this is the reason why we kind of keep to ourselves, but we're not keeping to ourselves to be isolating ourselves. We just don't want to have to deal with a lot of the bullshit that comes with being a Black person in general. You know, the intense level of racism that I've experienced throughout my life is frankly unfair. I don't want to have to deal with it when I'm just trying to relax and enjoy leisure time and just watch a silly little show. You know what I mean? And that, I'm sure a lot of Black other people agree with me. So it's like, you know, Black people and me, myself, especially, I'm really willing to make friends. I'm just not going to tolerate mistreatment.
I think that that's all that I wanted to go over. Is there anything in particular that you want to say that you didn't have the opportunity to say because maybe it just didn't fit in?
A couple things, I guess. One, yes, be cringe, be free. If anybody has a problem with it, I don't know about you, but I am a law-abiding citizen and I pay my taxes. I can do whatever the hell I want. So if I'm going to be cringe, at least I'm happy. And second of all,
and that's on period.
Exactly. Second of all, please make those Black OCs, whether they be for you or for Superman, because I'm looking at him right now. Give Superman Lois Lane with box braids. Give him, I don't know, some superpower girl with butterfly braids, and she's listening to Mary J. Blige.
50-inch bust down.
Yes, give Superman a 50-inch bust down girl with dark skin listening to Mary J. Blige. Do it. Like just do it. If it makes you happy. Because no one else is going to, like, that's the main thing, is like we do have to make these spaces for ourselves and support those who help us create it. So please like and share the work that you want to see more of, and create the work that you want to see more of.
Kyla. Okay. So if you are interested in seeing what more Kyla has to say, feel free to go over to her YouTube channel and check her out. I will link it in the card and also in the description. So please check her out. She's wonderful. She's very smart and very funny. And I think you will like her videos.
And I don't think you should have to tolerate mistreatment either based on your own race or really any other marginalization you might be a part of. We need to be less tolerant of the mistreatment of Black people, of Asian people, of queer people. We just need to be less tolerant of these actions. And that's really all I have to say. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, make sure you leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't, and make sure you ring that bell icon. Make sure it's colored in all the way. Otherwise, you might not get notified of my videos because YouTube, apparently, if you just use the partial notifications, if you skip even a video, they will never show you those notifications again. So please go ahead and ring that bell icon. If you want, you can join my Black Fandom space, my Discord server. The link will be in the description below. It is 18+, and I am very strict about that. You can follow me on all my social media, Blue Skies, Tumblr, and Instagram. It's the same name there as it is here, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.